The only reason you have anything is because of my fucking sweat, and you know every step of the way exactly how it works. But you walk around that fucking mansion in your $500 shoes and your diamond rings, and you act like butter wouldn't melt in your mouth. And you don't want it to get ugly. Too late.
I want what I am entitled to.
You're entitled to shit.
Well, I guess the honeymoon phase isn't back on. Welcome, my friends, to Sopranos Sit Down. Wait, yeah, Sopranos Sit Down? Cut to Black, a Sopranos Sit Down. Oh my God, it's been too long. It's been too long. But yes, the Cut to Black, a Sopranos Sit Down. Welcome back to season 5, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Jim Scampoli, and I've seen every episode of The Sopranos.
I'm Jacob Burrows, and I've seen 61 episodes of The Sopranos, and I will say, sorry to everyone who's watching along with us, making you wait and such. We did have some international trips to go on and such, but even so, we are trucking along towards the ending. As I was struck sort of watching this, I was like, oh, this is like the ending almost. We're getting up on the ending of season 5, and then there's just one season, and I don't even know. That feels really weird to me.
I mean, if anything, at least the last season is like a double season kind of, but you know,
I forgot about that. Wait, so 6 is okay. Never mind.
it's like 20 something episodes, so we still got a ways to go. But yes, we are very close to the end. But yes, this is the 9th episode of the 5th season, called Unidentified Black Males, written by Matthew Weiner and Terrence Winter. Also directed by Tim Van Patten. It aired May 2nd, 2004. Wow. And yeah, these are all Sopranos mainstays. And as we've mentioned before, and as you know, Matthew Weiner is the creator of Mad Men. And yes, what an episode. I feel like there's some bombshells. Well, there's some bombshells in all these episodes as we start finishing out season 5. Where are you at, Jacob?
Yeah, it's a really good one. I mean, it's pretty centered on Meadows' relationship, kind of. But I mean, also Carmela and Tony and their whole thing, and of course Tony Egg. Yeah, I think it's a really good one. It's solid all the way through. I'd say there's a lot going on, and I mean, the one thing that sticks out to me is Meadow, and his name is Finn, right? Meadow and Finn's relationship.
Yeah, and
they're sort of arguing that just feels so real and familiar. I mean, isn't it? Isn't that the thing?
Oh, totally. And even though like Finn's so dumb, because I mean, where it just ends with like an engagement, but it's also like, oh yeah, that's kind of, you know, that young stupid people, and they're in this long argument, and it's hot, and the air conditioner doesn't work, and it's late at night, and you just want to go to bed.
Yeah, the only solution is to get engaged. Yeah. They say don't go to bed mad, so you got to get engaged instead. Otherwise, everyone's just gonna be mad. So we start out with Tony sitting watching telly in the front yard, eating some nachos and such, and yeah.
What a weird thing that they're doing.
Yeah, it didn't really. I mean, to me, it's just American. I just assume American people do these things that I see in American television. Jim, am I wrong?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't even kind of until you just said it out loud, and I'm looking at it again. We follow like the extension cord. I mean, I guess you want to enjoy the nice hot summer day. I mean, yeah, they're eating nachos, but now the cheese is all like Jello now or whatever. Just hanging out. Just a weird thing to do. I don't think I've ever done this. I mean, now we watch it on our phones.
Well, yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's the problem these days with our phones. Now we don't need a huge extension cord to get outside. I will say, it seems like a good time. Maybe their AC is broken as well, so that's why they're outside. Either way, the point of this is that Tony Egg can tell him that he was jumped by some black guys, unidentified black males, and that's why he's got this limp that was very clearly from his foot getting run over last episode.
Yes, yeah, and not to call this out again, but it feels like it's been so long since we've watched and discussed Sopranos, where I'm like, oh yeah, that's where we ended up when, you know, Tony B limping off into the night as a homeless man walked by. Then we have a family dinner in the city with Tony and AJ and Finn and Meadow.
A weird combination, but I'll take it. When he says he's got dinner in the city, I'm like, we're about to see some real mob shit here now. With we're gonna have a sit down, trying to with little Carmine and Johnny Sack, and they're gonna squash this shit. Nah, it's just a family affair, and the biggest conflict is because of Finn paying the bill.
Yeah, this is some real alpha machismo shit where Tony gets pretty upset about it. I don't know this life at all where someone gets mad that I mean, I've worked in establishments, like I worked at a pizza shop for a long time, and sometimes like friends would come in and you'd bring their order up and go to charge them, and they'd argue over who's paying, and you have to just stand there like, I don't give a fuck who pays. And they're like, take my card. No, take my card. Don't take his. So, I mean, I guess this is a thing that happens. But
I don't know if it's alpha if it's in a pizza place. Like, no. I pay, you eat. Like, it doesn't. The whole thing doesn't come across the same if it's over some slices of pepperoni.
Yeah, maybe it's just the people I'm around because everyone out in my life is like, hell yeah, pay for me. Great.
Yeah, or the opposite of like, no, you pay. No, you pay. Yeah. That can happen too. But yeah, it's like Finn saying you're always so generous. You gotta know that guilt if someone's always like paying for stuff. You want to do something nice. And also, as we figure out in this episode, it's not like he's rolling in money, even though I'm under the impression that his parents are rich, but he's not got a huge amount of money. I mean, he's living in New York. Of course, his parents are rich. But Tony, he gets mad, but then outside they have kind of a nice moment where he's like, look, I know it was a good thought. I mean, it was the wrong thought, but you know what? You're a good kid.
Yeah. I mean, I was kind of taken aback by how upset Tony got, but I guess that's just Tony for you. And then, in classic Tony fashion, he has to pull him aside after and be like, hey, don't worry about the big scene I just caused. You're a good kid. I like what you're doing here. And then we have, because the other thing I kind of forgot all about the tryst between Carmilla and Tony, and it was interesting to see Carmilla be the fluttery one here about these feelings and the possibilities. Because I think we had both speculated that they cut early and that Carmilla was pretending to be asleep, but I guess no, we were wrong, because the way this shows it is that she's all gossiping with Gabby here, ooh, what's gonna happen when Tony comes? He sent flowers and he's dropping off AJ soon. We'll see what happens, and that doesn't really pan out.
Yeah, it is weird because it's almost like it would feel right if Tony got into his head that like everything's fine now. No, I live here again. Like that feels like it would happen. But Carmilla's the one who told him to get the fuck out, so nothing's really changed. But I think it is obvious from this scene that she at least wants him to want to get back together. Maybe she doesn't want that, but she wants him to want that so that she can decide and feel good about that. But he just kind of drives off, which drops off AJ and drives off, making her feel a bit shitty.
Yeah. Then we have
and he told her AJ to deliver the money, I guess, like her allowance, with a kiss on the cheek, and he doesn't even give her the kiss on the cheek.
Yeah, I think I was waiting for it as well, because he kind of goes to walk by and then he just keeps going. It's like, oh, you piece of shit. Oh, AJ, don't ever change. And then we have Johnny Sack and Tony playing some golf, talking about Peeps, or Joey Peeps, the guy who Tony B shot. And then we get some information here about how a homeless guy saw someone limping away. Tony starts putting 2 and 2 together here and has like a little mini attack. He falls over, and I think, what do they say? It's like Johnny Sack's like, it's his weather. The way the weather changes so fast. What do you expect's going to happen?
Yeah. This is it's interesting. This is definitely showing a lot of weakness to another boss. This should be a problem, but it's not really. At least not in the moment. It's all friendly, and I think if it was apparent that it was psychological, then maybe yeah, but it's also Tony's a big guy. If course, he probably ate something weird, and I think they say something like that. It's probably true. So I guess he can get away with this. But if he collapses in front of Johnny Sack again, then I don't know.
Yeah, because that was kind of in the early days of Sopranos, that was like a big thing with Tony, was just the whole showing weakness, and then even just having to come out and tell his crew that he's going to therapy and stuff like that. And yeah, it's not quite as big of a deal here, at least in this moment.
Yeah, it all seems quite friendly, but I think it's also like Johnny Sack. I mean, he turns very aggressive later, but for now, anyway, he wants Tony to be on his side against Carmine and Little Carmine. And that's what he's sort of saying beforehand when Tony's like, oh, it's sad when they pass away so young. And he's like, what do you mean? He got fucking murdered by Little Carmine. And so because he wants Tony on his side, he's not going to go, what a weak bastard who has just fallen over. But all of that is obviously changing there later in the episode.
And then we have Little Carmine being
talking about his hits, trying to be cool,
being George Bush. Like I don't think I put this together at the time, but I mean, they talk about it a bit in the Sopranos sessions, and it's like Little Carmine is George Bush, and then the other guy is the other guy. You know who we're talking about. And what
I actually don't. Al Gore, is he Al Gore?
No. Why am I spacing? They just had a movie about him that Christian Bale was in. God damn it! Let me look it up. Sorry, I was drinking. Oh, Dick Cheney.
Okay. Oh, yeah. You mean the other guy in the room is Dick Cheney?
Oh yes, yeah, the guy that's
Dick Cheney.
Yeah, the guy that's played by. I was drinking last night. The guy that's played by Frankie Valli, Rusty.
Yeah. But yeah, he basically says that, a war will give us the opportunity to show how capable I am, basically, is what he's saying. And change has always come through war. So, but that's, I don't know, like it feels like Johnny Sack knows like way more about everything than him. He has some people around him and they're like bigging him up. They're hyping up Little Carmine, but I feel it's in a sort of Game of Thrones-ish way so that they can be the power behind the throne if Little Carmine actually gets anywhere. Or not all of them, but like the guy behind him is like, yeah, and you're even better than your dad or whatever.
Well,
that's patently not true.
Well, and we see Tony dealing with Johnny Sack a lot. We don't see Tony dealing with Little Carmine, like kind of at all. And Tony does talk a lot about staying neutral. We don't see that much because I would almost expect, at least from what we see, Little Carmine would see that Tony is more siding, even though he's not actively doing anything. He's more siding with Johnny Sack. And it's worth playing real quick. I think I got this queued up because some of his lines are great.
Father. Happened to me.
God forgive me. But you may be a stronger man than your dad was.
The fundamental question is, will I be as effective as a boss like my dad was? And I will be. Even more so, but until I am, it's going to be hard to verify that I think I'll be more effective.
What the fuck is this sentence?
That's great.
But I actually just kind of got confused watching it. Well, like, what is he actually saying? And I watched with subtitles. But he's just kind of trying to sound smart, right?
Yeah. He's just a dumb person trying to sound smart, throwing in as many words as he can, not really getting his point across. And you kind of just have to like nod and be like, oh, okay, yeah, you're right, Little Carmine, let's do this.
Hey, which brings us to Finn. I think everything you said also kind of describes both Meadow and Finn and their sort of, we go to college now, so we're super smart, or he's even finished for now. But yeah, they're also want to use big words at each other, for fun. It's fun, though. When you learn a big word, you're going to want to use it.
Well, and even like I love, there's a quick comment, I believe, where they're talking. She says something about going down to like the job fair or the counselor or whatever the fuck. And
he doesn't want to take away a job that a minority could have.
Yeah, exactly. And then just the like you'd said before, some of the arguments do feel so real, and plus just the indecisiveness, because sometimes when you're in a relationship and it's like, well, no, just pick where we can go eat. It's like, well, no, you pick. And it's like, no. And in a weird way, I definitely, later on, I think Meadow's more annoying, but here I sympathize more with Meadow because she just wants Finn to make a decision. Like, just make a decision. Like, do you want to go visit your home? Do you want to get a job? Do you want to do something? Do you want to pick a fucking movie to go see? And he can't do anything because he's Finn.
Yeah. Absolutely. Deciding what food to get is the bane of so many relationships. I imagine is like the worst conversation ever. Now, movies is more. There I'm more like, no, don't worry, we're going to see all of these. We're going to see this one or that one. But no indecisiveness there. But it's obviously just because they want to get out of the house at that point. But like you said, he's very indecisive. Just sits on the floor and talks about his career. He has no idea what he's doing, and he's talking about like, I'm gonna be a photographer again or something, and she's like, you get mad when I ask you to take a picture of me and my friends.
Yeah, because he's supposed to be a dentist or something, but yeah, now he maybe got a comment on some pictures, so maybe he'll go back to photography. But yeah, I like the like from their different arguments, because then there's something else later on, or it might even be in this one, when there was like a girl that he brings up that she's like annoyed about. Like there's this whole, like, you pick it all up. You don't have to know who any of these characters they're talking about are, but it's like, oh yeah, this is like a fully realized relationship for like these young people that are pretending to be poor in New York.
No, that's so true, and also a well-written argument between a couple. It always like spirals off in weird directions where it's like, well, you would have maybe had a friend if you hadn't been so rude to that guy we met 4 weeks ago in that place up there in upstate New York or whatever. And they certainly sprinkle in enough of that for us to see the expanded scope of their relationship.
Yes, yeah. We do get a quick shot of the bear again, like kind of such a weird insert in the next scene here when Carmilla is on the phone with a lawyer, and we start to find out that Tony did take that advice, which I think goes back to like Whitecaps, when that the guy that was selling the house to Tony, and he did go and kind of poison the well with a lot of the big lawyers in town. It's almost a little too on the nose because it just cuts away. It almost feels like they were like didn't have that until they were editing it, and they're like, you know what, let's put a bear shot real quick in here. Because nothing really comes of it. It's just kind of like rooting around outside to be like, Tony's the bear. Don't you get it? Come on.
Yeah. No, I think that's exactly right. Because usually I would, in a show, assume that this is just a reminder that the bear is still out there. So we've obviously had a lot with the bear, and then showing this, and then that means in the season finale someone's getting mauled by a bear. I'm not ruling that out, but I think it's more likely that it was just exactly the way you said, where they were like, well, we have some bear footage, and they're like talking about how Tony's like being a big lumbering influence. He's out there poisoning the well, eating the garbage. He's a bear, get it? So yeah, it's the only thing that was weird about it is how it's inconsequential it is. But if someone does get mauled by a bear, I will stand corrected.
Yeah,
just kind of lumbers off there as well, and at the end of the scene. So
I mean, to go back to Game of Thrones real quick, I mean, they had a bear. They had a zombie bear. So
yeah, they did have a zombie bear. Yeah. So yeah. We move to a card game, right? Where let's see what happens in this scene, Jem.
Silvio's talking about Peeps and about the situation, and there's a key little detail that they decide they're going to pick up the headstone, which leads to a hilarious joke later on when it just says Peeps in huge letters on the headstone, and Tony's like, this is nickname. And he's like, we're going to get it fixed. Then, yeah, Tony shows up, pulls Tony B outside because Tony understands what's going on here. And Tony B kind of still tries to play it off. But as he does make the point later in the argument, like, should you even know? Like, should I even tell you if it's real? Like, trying to give him the, the benefit of ignorance, I guess, here in this situation.
Yeah, and unless I'm mistaken, it's just at the very start of the scene when they're laughing about this guy dying. Paulie and Little Paulie, like Paulie says some joke about how he died, and then Little Paulie comes in with the hooker getting shot in the chest. There's silicone everywhere, and Paulie immediately goes like, "Why you always gotta top me? Why you always taking the air out of my punchlines?"
Oh yeah, it's a great moment. So yeah, things are heating up. Tony knows about Tony B, and he does bring up he brings up the thing again, like, Tony says something to Tony B about how, you're trying to guilt me because you went away and I didn't. But Tony B's like, you're the one that keeps bringing that up, which is true. And then don't they talk? He talks about his IQ because that comes up a few times. He brings up his IQ here, gives him the casino. I guess in a very similar to the Tony reaction to Finn earlier, where at first he's yelling at him and then he calms down and he's like, you know what, you're a good person. So here he's doing that. He's yelling at Tony B. Then he kind of calms down, talks about how smart he is, his great IQ, decides to give him the casino, which I guess he should have just fucking done in the beginning. I mean, I know Tony B was trying to not be part of the life for a while. But I mean, if Tony just took care of him initially, he wouldn't be in this mess.
He got the fucking airbags, Jim. And like, if he just knew his fucking place, and I don't know, it's just he had. This is really annoying with Tony because he's like talking about his IQ later and trying to big up how smart he is for picking him. He's even says stuff like, you know what, I'm not so dumb either because I picked the right guy for the job. And it's like, this guy just went behind your back and caused a major schism with the people you're trying to keep shit cool with. And he did it literally only for personal reasons that are completely selfish, and it hurts you, it hurts your whole organization. And he's like, because of the guilt thing, and it is, that's what we get into towards the end of the episode, and I really love that scene later on, and this all builds up to that. But like, he it's such a bad decision, but he wants to do it because he loves Tony, but like the timing is so weird of it.
Yes, yeah because we have Tony and Melfi, and again, he's talking about his IQ, and you're right, he's bringing it up in a way of like, I'm just as smart because I put smart people in power. But Melfi kind of sees through it and sees that, not only is Tony like guilty, but he also is like concerned that Tony B's smarter than he is, and kind of I mean, I get from some of the stuff we see, I guess he kind of is. Like the way we see Tony B work with other people, or how he like works other people, I guess I should say. And then they kind of talk about the Carmilla situation a bit. And I believe it's when Melfi tries to give him good advice, where, Tony's talking about how he's like basically stonewalling her. and I think is this where he gets a call or something like that? Like, she's like, I don't know if that's the best. And then he's like, oh, sorry. And he gets a call and kind of trailed away.
I think so, because he's like, oh yeah, I left before she woke up. Let's see, it would send mixed signals if he was there in the morning or like acknowledged it at all. And then he gets a phone call, which is so rude. Just takes that. And meanwhile, Carmilla's off with a divorce attorney trying to get things finalized. And this divorce attorney gets pretty excited when he hears about this unreported income, because he's dealt with this sort of thing before, and he gets a percentage of this. So this all sounds great for the moment anyway.
Yeah, they're going to bring in some like financial experts or what have you that are going to go through, and they found all this hidden money, and things seem to be on the come up for Carmilla. Although, like, even if, it doesn't work out, as we know, but it just feels like that wouldn't be a good idea for Carmilla regardless. It just feels like that all that would do is open up like Tony going to jail, right?
Yeah. But she says like, oh, it's unreported income, and he's like, well, through legal means or illegal means, and it's like, but it's unreported income either way, right? So isn't that still illegal, right?
Yeah.
So it kind of seems like, it would be I guess Carmilla doesn't see it this way until later, but it's like, you are now kind of an FBI informant if you're doing this or whatever. Like, you're on that level. You need to go into witness protection if you do this, Carmilla. Kinda.
Then Meadow comes back, gives Finn the good news, got him a job in construction, and Finn's confused. He's like, I've never done anything in construction. I just get a job. But, I guess that's how it works. Because, through this whole episode, we see, because not that we, the audience, even know Finn that well, but we're seeing how Finn is becoming more acquainted with the Soprano lifestyle. And it's great to see how, because we've seen the thing with Meadow, with the way she's gone after Tony in the past, with either look at Mr. Big Mob Boss, or are you in the mafia? But then we see how she's Carmilla or Tony to the rest of the world, even with the Jackie Jr. situation, what comes up here. And it's interesting that to see her denial even to Finn when he's, tells her stories about people getting the shit kicked out of them, or maybe blowjobs happening on a job site.
Yeah, it's like, I saw this with my eyes, so, like, and it was fucked up, and her response is like, you know what? This is a way of empowering local people who never had any protection from the government, and this is how they took law into their own hands, because the lawmakers were corrupt. And it's like, wait, how did you get to that from what I just said, which was that I feel sick because I watched someone get their face kicked off them? But anyway, he's at the job site, and it's kind of like, well, Paulie shows up and tells him to clear the shit off his wheels. He gets talking to, is his name Vito, the guy?
Yeah, Vito's talking about the Padres, like, here, because he's was it San Diego Padres, I think, or Padres fan playing the Yankees. Yeah, Paulie shows up. He's got shit on his tires. He grabs what he thinks is just some random nobody to go clean the shit up. And it's great when he realizes that it's Meadows' boyfriend, and he has to go make nice with him. And I love that, like, I mean, I guess it starts to happen later when Finn does realize he could just sit down as well and, like, take a nap. But because, like, kind of in the beginning, they're all, like, looking at him like, why are you working? Like, you could be like us. Because these are not the no-show jobs, the no-work jobs. Remember we learned about these, I think it was, like, season 3 or whatever, where you just get to go hang out on the job site.
But we've all done that at times.
Yeah.
But yes, although I didn't read that because I felt that I guess they didn't. The rest of them kind of knew it was Meadows' boyfriend, I guess. But or did they? I'm not sure, because at first it seemed like, wait, who's this rando coming up talking to us? But I guess they did know. Someone told Paulie. So
yeah, because one of them tells Paulie.
Yeah,
I think actually Lil Paulie maybe tells him.
Oh, yeah, and then funnily enough, his reward is that when Paulie goes and gets the bucket and that, he's like, Paulie, come here. So he obviously gets Lil Paulie to clean the shit off instead. So we get the next scene where where they have a nice dinner, Carmilla and Tony. Actually, they don't. They don't get that far. But at the end, she's ready to order. And this is where the clip is from the intro, right?
Yes, yeah, because it was one of those when it started happening, like, I knew all the words, so I was like, oh yeah, I know the words to this scene, because it's nice. I think they would use it in, like, commercials or something like that. But it's kind of an interesting, not that Tony, like, hides his real self from Carmilla, because I mean we've seen them have some knockdown dragouts, but I guess in this context where, like, Carmilla, because I think they even kind of say it, where Carmilla's gonna hire these lawyers or whatever, and she thinks she's gonna really, like, take Tony to task here. But I mean, she's, like, underestimating what Tony, the connections he already has, how he kind of knows these situations, and, like, in a business money, like, standoff, things are a little bit different, and it's like I feel like she's seeing a side of him that she doesn't really know.
Yeah, but it's, like, understandable, because I mean, maybe she was thinking she could use this as, like, I have this power because I know these things, but so come to an agreement with me that's more reasonable, and, we don't have to go through this shit. But obviously, as soon as Tony's threatened, he goes into, now you're my enemy mode. Now it's like he's delivering a speech like he would to a rival boss or someone beneath him who he is, like, not playing by the rules or whatever. And we've seen that before, but even though they've obviously had lots of arguments, it's like she hasn't quite seen that exactly. Also got to give it up to Artie Bucco for, like, his comedic timing of coming in like, oh, ready to order, and he's all smiles, not quite reading the room.
I really appreciate Artie in a lot of the small moments that he has. He really does. He really does help make a scene, especially like an intense scene, like where this goes, where it gets pretty intense. It's nice to have Artie show up every now and then.
Absolutely. And she's ready to order at the end there. So anyway, we go back to Finn at the work site, flirting with this girl. Who this girl, though? What you doing, Finn? What's going on here, then?
Yeah, it is weird. They just kind of drop this in, and this actress is actually on The Shield. Great show. Yeah, because it feels like, I mean, I guess they are kind of talking about marriage or something like that around this point too. Like when he's talking to her.
He says that they're kind of as good as married because they live together.
Oh,
At this
okay.
point, I'm like, wait a minute. There's like a third guy living there, right? I guess he's not there for the summer, or maybe he moved out or whatever. But like, they were definitely living with another guy when we
Yeah.
first met Finn. So I don't know if it's exactly the same as being married. Though it is New York. Oh, these prices.
Yeah, I think they're at a different place now than that though. So maybe that guy's not involved. But yeah, I remember that too. Like when they
I
had.
thought it was okay. I thought I recognized it as the same place, but
It could
you're
be.
probably right. Who knows?
It could be. But yeah, it's interesting because this almost makes it seem like this is going to be a monkey wrench in the relationship. And I don't know, maybe it still will, but then it makes it definitely doesn't make you think that it's going to end with him proposing by the end of this episode. That's for sure.
Yeah, no, that is pretty good. But anyway, he's like slowly because I think I mean later, like you said, he's taking a nap. Now he's sitting down, so he's like progressing into this sort of just kind of hangout situation. Which wow, that seems like a good ass job. So Carmilla and Meadow go clothes shopping, and yeah, she reveals that she's moving forward with the divorce, and Meadow starts talking about like, have you thought about your life outside of this, outside of being dependent on some man? What are you gonna do? And blah blah blah. And it's like, Meadow, you are a baby. You're like a little child. You don't know anything.
Yeah, it's weird though because what she's saying is correct, but it's also she's a hypocrite because she lives completely off of the Soprano family and well, Tony specifically. So yeah, she doesn't really know about independence, but in theory, what she's saying is kind of true. And Carmella's kind of doing a woe is me, like, because they're shopping and she's like, well, I can't get it. Daddy stopped paying my card. And it's like, that's why in a lot of these times, like, I don't dislike Carmilla, but I guess I see maybe the Meadow in Carmilla a lot of times where, that's why like I read it more when that episode when she was kind of all sad on the bed and her father was fixing the door. Like I just read it more as like, oh, woe is me, Carmilla. Don't get me wrong. She's definitely got a bad rap and she does deserve better, but she kind of has to let's go back to what the rabbi said. Just walk away. You don't need any of this. Just become your own person.
Yeah. Yeah, and it ends with Meadow saying there are options in life, and Carmilla says, you have options, I have a lawyer, which I don't know if that makes sense, but it's a good line. Unfortunately, she doesn't actually have a lawyer because, but before we get to her losing her lawyer, let's see, we have... Oh yeah, we have what's their face? What's his face? Guy with the white hair showing up to the job site.
Yeah, Phil shows up on to the job site. I forget, he's like picking something up or whatever. Everyone's kind of busting balls with each other, and that's where Lil Polly makes like a gay crack to I believe it's Eugene, and then he ends up cracking a bottle over his head and beating the shit out of him.
Yeah, I gotta rewatch this scene, but yeah, it does go fairly wild, fairly quick. I mean, and it's good. It's a good contrast because Finn is obviously getting more comfortable. Where he's like, "Yeah, I watched a documentary on sharks' teeth when I was a kid, and ever since then, I wanted to be a dentist." And then they show up to pick up this stuff, and that's I guess I kind of forgot that this was like a joint effort. This is New York and Jersey working together on this. Obviously there was a bunch of conflict about it, so that is also another reason that Tony probably wants to keep things copacetic all around. But things do not remain copacetic, like you said. It's another one of these scenes where people are just hanging out, and in classic mob fashion, someone... Like, they're always busting balls, and most of the time it, like, doesn't come to anything, and it's just, like, who can bust the balls harder? That's the big thing. But then sometimes it's like, oh, that was... It's not even that it goes a bit far. I wouldn't even say, like, it's exactly on the same level as before, which, to someone like Finn, it's like, why the fuck did this explode this time, and not, like, he said way worse stuff yesterday.
Yeah.
But yeah, he, like, kicks his face and everything, and Finn
and then
almost throws up over there.
Yeah, and I think what's great, besides just the like insane violence, is that all the other guys are kind of laughing. Like it's like that Goodfellas thing too, where someone gets cracked in the head and the other wise guys it's such a normal thing, and they just start laughing, and then he's like dry heaving, like it's like a natural. I mean, he's obviously the most normal there, because he's having a real reaction to what's happening. But it's just a great parallel to what's going on, and they're all like, yeah. We'll get him to the hospital. A couple black guys ran off or something like that, because I believe it's called out because, the episode's unidentified black males. They bring up the Jackie Jr. thing because he was shot by black guys, supposedly. There's what the Tony's thing that comes up later on. And then, of course, Tony B's foot injury.
And this one, so there's 4 of them.
Yeah.
That's pretty packed.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what they do, I guess. And yeah, it's like you said, when it's like he gets a bottle smashed in his face, and that's not enough for them to like not laugh. They're like, ha ha ha, knew that was coming. But then it's like, oh, he just keeps kicking him. It's like, all right, he's had enough.
And then Finn's trying to tell Meadow about what happened, and she's like, Eugene, he's a family man. Like, what are you talking about? Or he's the nicest guy. I forget the exact.
First it's like, oh, he can't eat because it's too hot, and he saw this thing, and this is also a classic like relationship moment of like, well, why didn't you tell me you weren't gonna eat? I made dinner, etc., etc.
And it's great because she made chili, and the whole thing's been about how hot it's been. And she's like, "Well, I'm gonna make dinner," and she makes chili. It's the worst thing to eat on a nice hot night.
Yeah, nice summer food there. But yeah, so she says that she never saw any violence growing up, and just goes into cultured. Like these people we've seen doing lectures and things like all of this stuff, and how it's actually the authorities were corrupt, etc., etc.
Yeah,
and then we just.
Oh, go ahead. You're good. I'm sorry.
No, I was gonna move on. So what were you gonna say?
I was gonna say it's that classic like, my brother's a piece of shit. Can you believe what a piece of shit my brother is? And they're like, yeah, man, your brother's a piece of shit. What the fuck did you say?
How dare you?
Yeah, like it's that classic. I can say things about my family. Because he's saying like the guy was an animal and all this stuff, and yeah, Meadow kind of comes through. Like these are the moments where like Tony's not around, but Tony would be so proud. But then if Tony was around, she wouldn't want to give him that satisfaction. So it is kind of like that interesting thing there.
Exactly, and you're right. That is kind of always what she does. We've seen it several times. So then we have Peeps's funeral. It must be his name. It's right there on the stone, like you said. It's a good goof.
That's so funny.
Yeah, he's the fucking Jason. He's dyslexic or whatever. And the real name was something Pepperoli or something. I don't know.
Yeah, whatever his name was. Well, he'll always just be known as Peeps. I like to imagine that they didn't bother fixing it; they just left it there. And then Johnny Sack's very worked up that little Carmine's there at the funeral. Tony does make a good point of like once Tony gets him aside in the limo or whatever. He's like, this is kind of how it is. Like, this is not anything new with these guys. You might kill someone and then you're kissing his mother or his, widow or whatever. That's the life they chose.
Yeah, well, actually, I mean, I'd say Johnny Sack, he's not even complaining about that at first. He goes into, he goes into the fact that someone saw a limping guy or saw Tony B in the area. And I mean, even in this scene, it's not called out, but I was like, I hope Tony B's not still limping, or like he's gonna put 3 and 3 together and see what's definitely going on. So Tony kind of directs his anger towards little Carmine, like, if you want to be mad at anyone, like, he's right there. And then but Johnny's not having any of it. When we've seen his temper before, they get him into Tony gets him into the limo, and they argue back and forth about it. It's a good scene, especially because like Johnny Sack is like yelling and raving about the whole thing, and like you said, they get into how this has always been the thing, like it's fine, and Tony says that it couldn't have been Tony B because he was with him and they were looking for like Tony B's daughter.
Yeah, which to me is one of the biggest mistakes. It's like, I understand that Tony's covering for Tony B, but to go out and then be the one to vouch for him, to specifically try to say like, no, he was with me. Like, I'm like, Tony, why you gotta do that? Like, you could at least be like, he was with Christopher or something like that. Put it on someone else.
Oh, you mean because if it's like becomes apparent, then Tony is completely connected to it. It's not like he can claim ignorance. Yes, very true. And Johnny's like, well, if I find out you're lying, I swear to God. And Tony has to go like, it's because of enormous respect to you. I'm like not saying anything else right now because like you can't talk to me like this, basically. But yeah,
they do have a great shot where then it's just the two crews kind of having small talk under their umbrellas while their bosses are fighting.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
because they're just kind of like, they're just kind of friendly. They're like, yeah. So, anyways, I forget exactly what they're saying.
Okay, how's your daughter doing? Good, good. Yeah, but it kind of ends with I think this has happened a few times with Johnny Sack, that it ends with it seems like it's settled down. Tony kind of gets his point across, but then later it feels like it probably hasn't.
Yes. Yeah. Then where's it go? Oh, we got back on the job site here. Oh, this is where they ask Finn, if who would win, with like Mike Tyson or Muhammad Ali, and Finn, just is very afraid that, even if he picks the wrong, who could win in this hypothetical fight, that maybe someone's gonna get upset and like beat the shit out of him or something.
Yeah, and it's interesting because, well, not interesting, it's just a fun choice that he's, of course, working again now because he wants to separate himself from this sort of just hanging out type crew, but he just also has the helmet on, which, like, is kind of too small for him or something. I don't know, it just sits atop his head, and it's like he's trying to put on some armor here to protect himself from potential attacks, metaphorically speaking. And when he said, like, to tell you the truth, after the other day, I don't want to say the wrong thing, I was like, oh, that's exactly the wrong thing to say.
Yeah.
But then Eugene, I don't know who says it, but like, you know what, this kid's all right. See, but I don't know. Yeah, they convinced him to sit down and have a nap anyway.
Yeah, he does. Yeah, sit down. It seems like things okay. All right, things might be okay. Then we have Chris. Chris is upset over Tony B. This is a classic Chris that I feel like we haven't seen in a while.
Yeah.
Because this used to be his go-to, is always complaining. I mean, I guess he was still complaining about the bills and having to pay for dinners and stuff, but now it feels like Tony B was kind of picked over him in a weird way. Although it does, I mean, given I don't live this mafia lifestyle, but it feels like it would make sense that if someone went away for like 16 years and then they came out and like they're older than you anyways. I mean, I assume Tony B's made. Maybe he's not. Actually, know what? Tony does say we're going to see about opening up the books for you. I think.
Yeah.
So I guess
that's also how I understood it, that it like means, I mean, he went away fairly young, I guess, so he wasn't a made man. So that does make sense.
But it just does feel, I mean, I guess maybe I'm going off of, maybe I'm old school, like Richie Aprile. And I'm looking at Richie Aprile's point of view, where it does feel like if you went away for a while, you should get out, you get something to get back up on your feet. But yeah, Chris is upset. He thinks, fucking Tony B's, getting one over on him or something.
Well, yeah, and it's like he's right in that. Have we seen Tony talking to Melfi about Christopher recently? It used to be all about he's gonna run the family, and I got this great plan, and now it's all about Tony Egg. And so, I mean, he is kind of right, I guess. It does. This scene does end with Adriana getting on the phone, calling her handler.
Yeah.
And it just cuts away, and I almost kind of missed it the first time, and then looking back at it, I'm like, oh, wait, what did she say? Because we've seen that she's now, because she's not getting out of this, she started using it to her own advantage in a way. And, I mean, she's used to Christopher complaining, but it seems that she's going to call him up and say, it's all about Tony Egg now. And, I mean, he's on probation, so he could go away very easily, I assume.
Yes, yeah, very true. Yeah, I mean,
they did with Feach, a character I completely forgot about until this very moment.
Yeah, and it is kind of, it's such a quick thing, but yeah, it's just, it does show that Adriana is kind of using, or is kind of, I guess, moved past being above snitching, or however you want to be an informant, however you want to put it. Then we got Finn on the beach, the college kids, it's summertime, you're up late drinking, all hanging out. I've done this before where you're like, fuck, I gotta work in like 3 hours. I don't even need to go home. He decides to just head on in and sees Vito blowing a security guard outside the job site.
Yeah. Yeah. And so in that quick beach scene as well, so there's just these characters I don't think we've seen where they're like, oh, you're still thinking about joining the CIA? Nah, I'm going to film school. Like,
Yeah.
It's like this same sort of indecision that's plaguing them in their existence is also the same that's with all of their friends, because they're all in that transition period of like, okay, what are we doing now? We had a plan a few years ago, but guess what? It's been a few years. I don't know that I want to be a dentist. Maybe I want to go to film school too. But then he goes and sees Vito getting blown. And I did feel like that could have been quite easily avoided.
Vito's doing the blowing.
Oh, yeah, sorry. I feel like that could have easily been avoided if that guy who's getting blown would have just put his hand down and held him down. And kind of, I don't know, make it part of the fun, part of the action or something. Then, no, he would have been none the wiser. But maybe I'm wrong. I don't know, because Vito just kind of looks up like, oh, go? And then, yeah, he rushes off and gets cornered coming out of the bathroom or a porta potty. I thought maybe it's just I don't know, teen comedies, but I just assumed it was going to be flipped over when he's in there, that porta potty. But no, it's just Vito waiting outside there, and yeah.
I love I love his like delivery of like Finn DiTrolio, my arch nemesis. Like. So great.
Yeah. What is that? That's not a reference to anything, right? He's just being like.
Yeah, he's just kind of being like weirdly. He's. I guess he's doing the friendly intimidation.
Yeah.
But I really don't know what to read of the whole situation, because he invites him to the Yankees game and he's like, I'm going to see the Yanks beat your Padres. Mm-hmm. And then, I mean, Finn is rightfully worried and scared. I mean, we just saw that he kind of started getting comfortable again when he sat down and had a donut. But now it's like he has some really big information because, someone made a joke about someone being gay and they got the shit kicked out of him. But then the fact that it shows Vito all in his Yankee gear at the stadium, like kind of bummed. I'm like, oh, maybe he really just wanted to watch the game with him.
Well, first I was like, I thought he was giving him 2 tickets because he was like bribing him basically. But then it's like, no, we're going. And that's a bit weird. Just going with someone, I don't know, from work in general, let alone someone you just saw blow a guy who might want to murder you now and that. So yeah, I guess I don't really blame him for hesitating. I really thought up until like the next scene even, that he just got the tickets and wasn't going to use them. But then, like you said, he's just outside there. I think this goes hand in hand with what Paulie was doing as well, like giving him some cash to take Meadow out. Like everyone wants to be on Finn's good side, kind of.
Yeah.
And Vito even more so at this point. I don't think there was anything nefarious in it, but like you said, there's that playful intimidation of like, don't, like, I could kill you. There's that. But I think he was just going to see the game.
It's interesting too, because like most shows, to draw that through line, would have Vito be the character that beats someone up for making a joke about him being gay.
Yeah.
And then to kind of push more drama into this moment here. So it's kind of interesting that they don't do that. I guess it's very in line with the Sopranos to have something that's kind of connected, but they don't go the full Monty, I guess, like most TV dramas would do. So yeah, I just think it's just kind of interesting that they make that choice.
I think that's a great point, and I think it is a good choice because it would just make the character or several of the characters less two-dimensional. Like, he would just be like the guy who will flip out and beat you up, but then he's secretly gay. Now he's just in this environment where that can easily happen, and he's like one of the tough guys, and I don't know, everyone involved kind of gets to be a bit more believable doing it this way.
Yeah, and I mean, it does. I have read reports that it was the actor's idea, Joseph Arganascoli. I guess he came up with the idea of Vito being a gay mobster after reading about a member of the Gambino crime family who was gay and allowed to live for the sake of being a good earner. I do believe there's a quote in the Sopranos session where he said, like, even though it was his idea, he said something along the lines of like, well, I thought I was going to be given, not taken, or something like that. And Terrence Winter, or one of the writers, was like, it doesn't work that way. Like,
Yeah.
like that was his one issue. Like, oh, well, I'm blowing the guy. I'm not getting blown.
Well, yeah. And so Finn talks to Meadow about this and says he was coming on to him, and that maybe he wants to fuck me and then kill me. I don't even know, but that's not even important. The only important bit about this scene is he got out the suitcase.
Yeah. Yes. Well,
he was thinking out loud in his action of taking out the suitcase.
I mean, real quick, it does maybe put a spin on, I think, all the early interactions. It is always Vito talking to Finn. And I don't know, maybe this is like heteronormative gay hysteria, but like,
absolutely.
Could he have been? Was he kind of hitting on him earlier in the episode? That's for the viewer to decide. But yes, you're right. The important thing is he got out a suitcase. And the weird thing with this is it is such an annoying argument, and Meadow's so annoying. But I feel like maybe now that I'm older, when I do hear her argument makes more sense to me now, at least, even though she's being very shrill. Like I at least get more what she's saying. I remember when I initially watched, I was like, ugh, Meadow's such a bitch.
No, I totally get where she's coming from, because but then also like
what it means.
It is, yes, but he didn't even pack it, and he so if he started packing it, okay, but now we're getting into the specifics, but if he'd started packing it and it didn't ask her to go with him, like she says later, like, you didn't ask me to go with you, you just got out the suitcase, but like he literally just got it out, though. They were already talking about maybe going to LA or maybe doing this and that, and as he's saying, he's thinking out loud, and then he says, well, not out loud, but in the action of getting the suitcase, I was thinking, And she's like, thinking of leaving? And he's like, no, I was just, yes, I don't know. And this goes on for the rest of the episode.
Well, and I think the other thing, though, it is important because what they were talking about in the first discussion, I think it's just was clear, and I think, or at least Meadow read it as clear, is that he did want to go home. And he kept looking for an excuse. That's why they would talk about, they talked about the AC, they talked about not having a job, they talk about the hot summer and blah, blah, blah. Like, and we see that Finn's so indecisive about everything else, about, whether it be what to eat or pick a movie or this and that. He wanted to do it. He just didn't want to tell Meadow that. And it was almost like, even though I do feel like he does have a good excuse now because he's fearing for his life and maybe it would be a good idea to go away for a while, it just all stems back to the fact that he probably did just want to go home. And maybe their relationship isn't as important as she thought, because I think what some of her guilt thing initially was like, well, I was going to do a semester abroad, or I was going to do something, but she stayed for them. It was something like that. But now here we are, and he's got the suitcase out.
Yeah, but Jim, there was no abundant intentionality in him getting out the suitcase, as he says.
It's like a little Carmine.
Yeah. No, I think you're right there. And I don't know if it's the exact words said by that girl. I think her name was Felicia, that Finn was talking to on the work site. But she says that, like, when you're not married, you can just grab I was with a guy, he just grabbed a suitcase and left in the middle of the night or whatever she says. And that's basically what, they're almost doing. And yeah, they get into the thing I was mentioning about the hunters in Montreal now with a French boyfriend or whatever who was all over Meadow's ass and and so on. So anyway, the argument just goes on all night, to the point where they're sitting on the bed and they're both super tired, and it's 4 a.m, staring into space, and they're talking in these big words about the whole thing. They're in a transition period, like we said earlier, and
and then finally
he's falling asleep.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, she's falling asleep. She, storms off into the bathroom, and then finally, then she comes out, and it's like, why don't we just get married? And it's like, what a perfect start. I mean, I guess I can't think of. There's only one other engagement I can think of on The Sopranos, and it was just as good. I believe it's when Chris shows up at Adriana's
Yeah.
mother's house after he like beat her up or whatever, and he's like, I bought a ring and everything.
Yeah, no, that's also a good one. So even though we don't know it's gonna end with the engagement, I mean, looking back, it's just great having Carmilla and Tony going through this at the same time, having it all balance out. Because the next scene is Carmilla walking out from the shop, gets a call that she won't be having this lawyer any longer either, because guess what? Seems like no one wants to be a lawyer against Tony unless they really have to.
Yeah, and these forensic accountants that he was talking up so much before, now they're backing out as well. Yeah, Tony, I mean, Tony can have his hands in a lot of these things and can basically shutter it all off for Carmilla, and she's, rightfully frustrated and upset. Because that was her, like, as you said, that was her option. That was her, you have options, I have a lawyer. Well, no, now I don't.
Yep, now you don't have anything, and she's appropriately upset. So we get to the scene with Melfi and Tony, where they're talking about, the marriage falling apart and all of that, but it's like after the scene, obviously we didn't quite mention it, but it's obvious that after the scene where he's in the limo, he looks over at Tony B, and it's like, wait, why the fuck did I do what I just did? Like, I just sacrificed so much for this, and I just gave you a promotion, and are you paying for what you did? Like, you're not really. And he gets into how he's been having panic attacks, and we find out about multiple panic attacks that haven't been on screen. Am I right?
Yeah, because basically this was, well, first Tony's talking about, those 17 years when Tony B was away, he did so good. Like, it really was like his meteoric rise was basically in those past 17 years. And he gets into about how, well, the original story is he's jumped by blacks. He got like a scar on his head. You got beat up and you couldn't make it to the job. But it comes out he had a panic attack. He was arguing with Livia, something to do with, it was when Meadow was like a baby at the time, something about making booties or buying booties for the baby Meadow, and they got into a big fight, and he got into a fight with her, and then he had a panic attack and like passed out. It is interesting. I mean, obviously these are retcons they kind of work in, because if you look at the pilot, like if this had happened, I mean, I guess even if it was going back to the pilot, it still would have been like over 10 years beforehand. But it would almost seem like, wait a minute, this happened to you before, remember?
Yeah, well, he says he didn't even know what it was then. And I mean, interestingly, he starts having a panic attack here as well in the office, which has never happened before. And the way it's shot obviously changes as well. Like, they match it up because it starts very sort of wide and, the usual sort of thing, but it moves into close up with a quite fuzzy kind of feel to how it's shot and moving with him, and we're in that moment with him. And this is, I have like flashbacks to when he's talking about meat being fried in the kitchen by his parents and all of that, and how it made him like how this is like the big revelation moments that have happened in The Sopranos. It was that same type of feeling when all of this was coming out, because like he obviously isn't always honest with Melfi, but he's also obviously not honest with himself, and he's buried this so deep that he barely told Melfi that about the unidentified black males who did this to him. But then this all comes out and he starts like actually panicking, and it's like, as Melfi says, that's a huge burden even before all of that. Like, even the cover story is a huge burden, but then there's this, and this feeling of like complete weakness and self-hatred that comes from that as well on top of it. And then seeing himself as the boss now, even though he couldn't like steal a car or whatever they were doing because he was too weak to actually do it. He fainted because he had a fight with his mother, and I feel that would be enough to make anyone start having this type of panic attack, possibly.
Yeah, and just the way Lorraine Bracco plays it too, because I mean, obviously, Melfi understands anxiety attacks, panic attacks, what have you, and how it affects people. But yeah, like as you said, this is the first time she's seeing it with Tony, and something they've talked a lot about over the years together, and now like witnessing it and kind of being like weirdly interested and intrigued, but also, trying to comfort him and, be the psychiatrist that she is to him. So yeah, it's a lot of great stuff.
She says she has a medical bag there apparently for like emergencies, which makes sense.
Yeah.
As well, just in case. But just watching him.
Oh, go ahead. I was gonna go ahead.
Just watching him, it's like I don't know. Was a really powerful scene for me from this and how it ties together with what's been going on in previous episodes, and just this sort of evolution of Tony. I don't know if it's evolution exactly, but like she says, Melfi, it's like he says it's like taking a shit.
Yeah.
She says it's more like childbirth, and that's kind of what these moments feel like when they're at their best. Like, because some episodes we have therapy and it's like, all right, we got to give some fun commentary on what's going on in the episode, but some episodes we have this, and this is why I think the original concept of the show was, mobster goes to see a therapist, and this is like delivering on the promise of that first episode, the pilot episode, of what that could potentially lead to. This is one of those scenes, and it's one that sticks out for me.
Yeah. Trust me, it's like taking a shit.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly my point. Yeah. So, anything else on this scene, or
No. Yeah, I agree with everything you're saying. And even just like some of the desperation in Tony's voice. He's like, "What am I gonna tell him?" Like what are they gonna think? Like, it's all played brilliantly.
Yeah. So next scene we have final scene. We have Carmilla coming home to see. I think Tony's in the pool, just floating there like the bear, and she just shakes her head, gets the call, and very excited. Meadow tells her that they're getting married, and it's just great to see the two of them all smiling in the sunlight, like, because it makes sense why they would make this bad decision.
Yeah.
Because like now they're happy. We were feeling like shit before, and now we're happy. So like it adds up in a weird way.
Yeah, this is great. Yeah, we made a great decision. We're all happy now. And again, it's another moment where, like, I've brought this up a bunch of times. They do a really good job of making Tony gross. Like, at least they do a good job of showing Tony through the eyes of Carmilla. Because obviously we love the show. We love Tony. He can almost do no wrong, even though he does wrong all the time. But they always give us these moments where we see Tony through Carmilla's eyes, and it's like, oh, you piece of shit. And then I like to feel like this is really right after therapy, like after you had this big moment that he has to go to his pool, his duck pool, his family pool, his home. Like, I think that all works. Like, this is him, like, really, like, kind of unwinding and just letting it wash over him, if you will.
Yes, exactly. And for all that, it was amazing acting. In the previous scene, just Carmilla as well, her face finding out her daughter's getting married, and she says like, I'm gonna cry, and Meadow's like, yeah, and it's like she is, but she's looking at Tony. It's like she's seeing the past and the future and the present all at once, and that's a really great ender for this episode.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it's almost, you could see where she wants to be like, don't do it.
Yeah,
no,
exactly.
Don't do this.
Marriage is a sham. It's a mistake. And we're Catholic, so you're stuck forever. But that's the end of the episode. I think it's a really strong one for the reasons we laid out there. Tony has a great storyline. Finn and Meadows ties in with what's going on with Carmilla really well. I don't feel like there's anything sort of unnecessary in this one. It's a really nice one.
Yeah, I agree. Good stuff.
That's it. So if you had an opinion on this episode or any episode of Cut to Black, it's getting to that point where if you want to send us your thoughts on season 5, please do. Because it's going to wrap up in a mo here in just a sec, basically. So send those to showswhatyouknowshow at gmail.com. You can also leave a review on iTunes or similar. We really do appreciate those. And for Jim, there's, of course, jimandthem.com for his other podcast. And for me, awesomepedia.org, where I collect my various projects. Anything else, Jim?
There's just one more thing left to say.
What's that?
Cut to black.